I fucking saw your message, bitch. Like, what is he doing? Like, what are you doing, bro? Wait, are you actually unironically pro Hong Kong? Kind of cringe, bro? Yeah, I guess I'm fucking kind of cringe. I think that the on the other hand, why should they care about specific U.S. domestic policies and issues? They just want to they just want whoever will support their movement. Yeah, except again, that's fucking ridiculous because none of those people actually genuinely care about their movement, and they're just simply using them as a fucking pawn against China. So if you want your fucking movement to have legs, and if you want your movement to have legitimacy, looking for allegiances from the American State Department and aligning yourself with Republicans like Marco Rubio is just a demonstration that these people aren't going to side with you when push comes to shove. Country glowing the chef for calling us CIS for being homies with the Republicans they claim to hate. Like I don't appreciate, like I understand why people in Hong Kong would absolutely despise and not want to have the Chinese government take over, which they inevitably were going to. That's what happens when you're a fucking like colonial nation state that ultimately was going to be sold back to mainland China, and accelerating that process on behalf of the Chinese Communist Party by 20 fucking years is understandably going to cause a lot of anger on behalf of the people that live in Hong Kong that don't want to that don't want the Chinese government to fucking change their way of life. Okay? I get why you would want to protest against that. Hong Kong literally belongs to China. It was stolen land, you white fucks in chat. Yeah, except the difference is what doesn't matter in the circumstances. There are plenty of fucking people in Hong Kong who very legitimately look. There are people in Hong Kong who are who are operating at the behest of the American State Department. Okay, sure, training, fighting back against Beijing, whatever. Okay, but then there are also plenty of fucking people who legitimately do not want the Chinese government to take over Hong Kong and subject them to the authoritarian Chinese rule, basically. All right. And as someone who's saying like all land is technically stolen, okay, but it's stolen from one fucking power by another colonial power that is thousands of fucking miles away. Like, how are you going to, like, what is this argument, dude? What is that argument? Oh, well, you know, it's technically British. Like, is that what you're saying? That like the kingdom has a better stake on Hong Kong than fucking China does? Like, it's a psychotic take, okay? Now, having said all of that, obviously, the people of Hong Kong having issues with the Chinese government taking back Hong Kong is always going to be an issue. I think their grievances are legitimate. I do. Non-supporting CIA ops equals tankies? No, well, just because some of the fucking people in their protests are definitely getting help from the American State Department does not change the reality that there are still plenty of people who are absolutely, understandably against China taking back Hong Kong.
Or blaming on any Hong Kong activists, I would say that as the politician, it's important for us to make friends with both sides.
Still, some active voices in the pro-democracy movement are looking forward to what a Biden White House means for Hong Kong.
America is strongest when it works with its allies.
Daniel Lee Tat Ning is the owner of the Hong Kong Reader bookstore in Hong Kong, regularly hosting and selling works by pro-democracy thinkers in the city. Although he wants Hong Kongers to have greater freedoms and democracy.
What? Give Turkey back to Africa then? What? Why would Turkey be given back to Africa?
Found out my mom had cancer last month and your streams have kept me sane. She has to have surgery on the 31st to avoid paying her deductible again. Medicare for all.
Sorry to hear that, man. I hope she gets better. What? That's what? I need to know where he was coming from. I know it's bait, but like it's one of those where you're like, what? That's some crazy bait, bro.
He doesn't believe Trump is offering a path to that future.
即係接觸大選初期，我會個人係比較傾向拜登，即係比較明顯傾向拜登。而原因可能係因為的而且確佢其實同對美國人一樣啦，佢最大支持嘅原因係佢係 not Trump。
但係你覺得即係香港人如果支持特朗普，然後同時之間亦都忽略咗佢嘅一啲同民主或者自由相違背嘅行動嘅時候，又有冇話呢樣嘢係有個矛盾係好難解決咧？
我諗呢個都要牽涉到香港人對於或者係華文媒體啦，即係對呈現出嚟對於特朗普嘅言論。咁首先好多人會首先願意相信特朗普先。咁所以喺好多香港人嚟講咧，其實特朗普係一個可信嘅，佢唔係一個冇道德嘅，即係佢都會指出民主黨喺 Donald Trump 上台之前，其實一直以嚟嘅政策都係同中國有好緊密發展一個緊密嘅經貿關係。咁而呢個路線如果持續，咁佢就會如果翻返嗰個路線咧，就
The irony here is like Trump literally criticized China, right, all the time. And then what actions did the Donald Trump administration take? The only significant course of action that the Trump administration took was put sanctions on Hong Kong, which ironically literally leaves Hong Kong in a worse position overall and basically more reliant on China, on the mainland. So what Donald Trump did to Hong Kong was literally help China. Okay? Like, it's so weird that the people of Hong Kong are like, oh, it's so sick that Trump did this. People often focus on the theatrics, and they never look beyond that. They focus on the theatrics. They focus on what, like, you know, leaders are saying, and then they refuse to see what leaders are doing. It's the same shit with, like, you know, Recep Tayyip Erdogan speaking out against Israel, but like still absolutely like training Israeli pilots and shit. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I mean, that was a long time ago. It's an old meme, but still, it's so silly. Like AOC fucking got him, dude. So, again, don't look at what some are saying that about AOC right now. Yeah, okay, dude. Yeah, AOC is super fake. I know you want to play Cyberpunk right now, Habibi. I do. It's a 4chan meme to troll poll posters. Oh, Karabağ is an anti-white movement originated from Turkish posters on 4chan. Oh. I believe that groups of individuals that want autonomy, especially when they have legitimate grievances, deserve to have that autonomy. I understand that China is not going to do that, and it's still technically Chinese land, so I don't know how to deal with it. But what is 2 Michaels? China still has the 2 Michaels. What do you keep saying? They have a right to self-determination, but the 2 Michaels, I don't know what that is. Anyway, regardless, it's top of the hour every hour where we do a 60-second ad break. I'm going to run it right now. Here's the ad. 2 Canadians, China imprisoned following the Huawei executive. Oh. What the fuck?
你又有冇呢個憂慮咧？
我個人就比較少嘅，我個人唔係太憂心呢樣，因為我自己睇嘅點就係喺 Donald Trump 上，即係過去4年間，美國對華政策開始強硬啦。咁究竟係個起點喺邊度咧？咁我嘅觀察係共和民主兩黨嘅民選議員嘅牽頭嘅作用，喺好多次嘅事件上都比 Donald Trump 牽頭更大咁啊！ 而呢一啲都會令我覺得美國對華政策嘅強硬咧係一個比較深入佢成個外交政策同埋國家。
So your opinion on if China is socialist or not? I can't remember you talking about this. No, I don't think China is socialist. What the fuck? It's not socialist. It has higher degrees of socialization than other countries. It's taken great initiatives in basically uplifting less developed parts of China. But no, it's not socialist. I don't even think it's a transitional socialist state, as many would declare it to be. I mean, it still has insane inequality. Yeah, no shit, it still has insane inequality. It's literally, it's an incredibly poor country that has been very poor for a very long time. I think that they have done some horrible things to the Uyghur Muslims, considering them to be separatist and hold them under a surveillance state. But overall, uplifting rural areas, villages, like hard to reach areas, year over year for the past 2 decades, 3 decades is really good, and it would not happen without higher degrees of socialization. So it's a transitional social democracy, I would say, but with authoritarian rule. How is China not socialism? Are you seriously going to tell me that the straight face that a capitalist country uplifted 1 billion people out of poverty? That's Western propaganda meant to discredit the success of the CPC. I think socialization is the reason why China was able to uplift its country using how do I describe it? I mean, part of the reason why they were able to do this is because of a bargain that they made, utilizing their own basically functionally unlimited resource of labor power. They allowed their own labor resource to be exploited by Western manufacturers in exchange for, and I am using very reductive terms here, but they basically threw their labor power at the problem and took IP as a secondary payment, I guess. And through that, by utilizing the foreign investment coming in, flying into their country, they rebuilt or they built infrastructure all around the country and truly uplifted their country in no time. They used capitalists' own interest in increasing their profits every single year against them. This way, they maybe intentionally or unintentionally disrupted the American and overall Western labor force as well, by removing manufacturing and destroying a fundamental plank of what the capitalists would consider the middle class, a strong middle class. And capital owners in the United States both move their manufacturing overseas and simultaneously work to abolish any sort of labor union power in America, putting the American working class at a worse position overall. A lot of the anger that you see from reactionaries, or a lot of the anger that you see from working class people, stems from this reality. Okay? Are you seriously saying Deng's reforms were good? I'm not saying Deng's reforms were good, but he was right. It did, or maybe he was right in ways that he didn't know he was going to be right in. Do you think that it's an accident that the American labor power is just completely fucking eviscerated? Do you think that happened? Do you think that happened on accident? What happened? How did that happen? It's because manufacturing moved overseas. it moved to China. Corporations literally have more voting power than citizens in Hong Kong. I know we all call the U.S. a classic dictatorship, but Hong Kong is even more so. Autonomy for Hong Kong means authoritarian capitalist control.
The city is starting to get to know what the Biden
How is China capitalist when it's run by the Communist Party? Checkmate. I mean, I think that it's hard to declare a party a communist or even socialist when they have more billionaires per capita in their party apparatus, in their party membership than any other fucking world party. So, you know, I know it's a joke, but that's my take on Chinese communism.
President-elect Joe Biden picked Anthony Blinken as Secretary of State, who previously said the U.S. needs to take a stand on Beijing's crackdown in Hong Kong. What that looks like remains to be seen, but one thing we know for sure is that Hong Kong will be watching closely.
Everything we need inside the barn.
What the fuck? Hold up. Hold up. Listen here, Hank. Communism is the government does says they pretty much follow the Korean miracle technique, but did on austerity state-fueled companies, extreme protectionism, stealing IP until they could compete. It's the same way all Western countries became individual industrial powerhouses. Protectionism until you hold the advantage, then push free trade. Hajun Chang has an excellent book covering this called Kicking Away the Ladder. My food is here. I'm waiting on my food. That's because there's 80 million CCP members.
Thanks for being steadfast in the sea of hogs helps a lot.
Including videography stuff should be in these two.
Billionaires are heavily surveilled and still at the check of the Communist Party of China. Imagine S&P 500 just getting nationalized next year. The problem is Western leftists complaining are being idealist and don't seem to get the material conditions are different. Oh, okay. No, you have to have billionaires. You're right, but they're being surveilled by the government, so it's okay.
Hey Hassan, you look
no, that's a
very
really good take.
In that turtleneck hassle.
The next pandemic could come from an American factory farm. Just leave? Hold up. No, you're right. Free market capitalism is better. Just let the billionaires go buck wild. No, I'm just failing to comprehend why there
Also,
needs to be billionaires.
Finally finish Dark Souls
3? If we can comprehend that like the existence of billionaires is a fundamental policy failure, then we should be on board with this notion that it's not all right when there is when there are billionaires in China as well. I am confused. Hating real examples of socialism? I don't think it's a real example of socialism. I hope it is, but I just don't think it is. Attract foreign capital is a reason to have billionaires. Oh, okay. Never mind. So, here's the thing. I think that China has great redistributive policies. And it has good social safety nets. It's done a good job of reappropriating its
China
wealth.
Pogo.
I think it's done a good job of uplifting certain parts of the country. It is a success story. But having said that, this notion that they have done as best as they could or are otherwise socialist is, I think, a little silly at this stage. Maybe they will be. We'll see. But as long as there are billionaires, and as long as there are, as long as like, you know, workers do not own the fucking means of production, and they do not, then they are not a socialist state. They're just not. I don't even know how they would be considered a transitional socialist state, unless you think that as a someone who would be otherwise considered a tanky because you're defending China or whatever, unless you consider social democracies to be a transitional state towards democratic socialism, in which case I do agree it is.
Nice.
Feel me? There are so many Chinese that moved to Japan because of the big gap between rich and poor isn't fair for college students. What? Dude, what the fuck is going on? This homie is like literally lost. Hold on 1 second. Here.
Backpacks. Rocky, you should take biosecurity gear. I'll also give you a trauma kit, because we just might be split up.
I'm in the safe house with a group of activists who are planning to break into a pig farm tonight. Their goal is to steal some pig feces and nose swab the animals in order to prove their hypothesis, which is that the next global pandemic is brewing inside an American factory farm.
Do people want to write down our jail support phone number and possibly our address as well? Getting close to the street where we're going to turn left. So people want to prepare to drop. No cars behind us, right? Let's go. Turn off the light. It's all good. Just go. Let's stay single file if we can. Rocky, let's leave you right here. You're our only eyes and ears once we're inside, so if you see or hear anything, let us know.
The activist tactics are pretty extreme and illegal, but they have good reason to be worried. The World Health Organization says about 75% of emerging viruses that affect humans originate in animals, including COVID-19. And scientists who study disease transmission say that the animals we should worry about are living inside American industrial farms, where sheer scale creates the perfect breeding ground for the next pandemic.
Let me tell you, most hogs don't have this lifestyle, okay? If you have several thousand hogs packed in together, and they're all genetically largely the same, then it selects for the most virulent pathogens that are possible. And so in the course of industrializing livestock production, we are also industrializing the pathogens that circulate among them.
This has already led to outbreaks. In the late 90s, chicken coops in Asia fostered the evolution of the bird flu, which still infects humans to this day. In 2009, the swine flu was traced back to a factory farm in North Carolina. The bug killed nearly 500,000 people.
Focusing on diseases alone when they become a pandemic is kind of a little bit too late. You know, once a virus goes...
Criticizing the existence of billionaires and the CCP is something I fight with other commies all the time with. The CCP stated goal is developmental and material conditions for the masses. Even Xi states this in its governance of China. Billionaire existence is inherently counterintuitive to that stated goal. Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. I did my college research on disease in these pig farms. How are workers not exploited in China? Though, isn't China bad on workers' rights a lot like in America? Yes, they are. They are. With respect to their material conditions and where they started, they're in a better position overall. They've been able to truly uplift the conditions of the working class in China in a matter of 10, 20 years. And that's something that you have to always take into consideration, which is why I say there are some good things that the Chinese government does. But having said that, it's not like they own the means of fucking production or anything like that, which is supposed to be the ultimate goal of a state. A state that is in a transitional socialist organization of the economy. Anyway, here.
Human to human, there's not much you can do.
What's the worst?
I'm literally about to eat fucking, chickies.
Love you.
While watching this again. Hold on.
Scenario.
That it will spill over into the people that are tending to these animals, adapt to the human immune system, and then circulate among humans to the point that we'll have no defense for it.
Despite these fears, farms are difficult to monitor, even for government food safety inspectors. They're forced to look for diseases inside slaughterhouses. But in recent years, under pressure from the pork industry, the Trump administration has made that harder to do. In 2019, officials at the Department of Agriculture passed a rule that would give pork producers more control. The program gives the option to reduce the number of government food safety inspectors by 40% and allows plant workers to sort bad meat, traditionally a responsibility of USDA inspectors. It also allows plants to process meat as fast as they want, potentially giving undertrained workers less time to spot diseases. That went too far for Dr. Pat Basu, who was then the chief veterinarian for the USDA Food Safety and Inspection Service.
I worked at USDA about 35 plus years.
How did it change over the years that you were there?
The public health situation went down quite a lot when Trump administration came in. Their goal was to reduce 40% of the inspection force. Mm-hmm. And that was not what I thought would be the right thing to do, because we were supposed to make sure that things are protected for the consumers.
Can you explain why that's a concern for you as someone who was a chief veterinarian at the USDA?
Well, the point remains, the biggest eyes and ears we had in the field, they were trained to look for disease conditions. If you remove those people,
3 months has.
There's nobody else other than the industry itself looking over their own shoulder. What worries me is people with vested interest in position of power giving the authority away to industry, and industry taking it, and they're not as qualified and not as interested to do work for the consumers as they are for the industry they're working for. This would create a problem where we could have an epidemic outbreak, which we couldn't control.
How real is the fear that we may have a pandemic brewing?
Any day. Any day. It can happen tomorrow, it can happen 2 years from now. But it will happen.
Dr. Dankovich works for America's largest pork lobbying group. They say, even with the new rules, the process is still safe, and federal inspectors are still involved. They just need fewer of them.
There's virtually no other food that's under continuous inspection like meat and poultry is, with that many people in each plant every time it's running.
You know, people have come to us and said, we're concerned that the next pandemic could be brewing in one of America's industrial-sized farms. What do you say to that?
It's something that we all take very seriously. I think it's important to understand, though, just to take a step back and look at the way that we raise pigs in this country, which really I think is a global model, was designed to keep the pigs safe and healthy. And I think the intent of the new swine inspection system is really not less people, but using the people that you have in a smarter, better way to tasks that they've identified that really have big food safety impacts.
You mentioned that the intention of farmers and meat packers, it is to hold food safety to such a high standard. Then why not welcome more USDA inspectors? Why not hold up the line speed?
To say just the answer is necessarily more regulations or more inspection, I'm not sure it's as simple as that.
This is a truck right here that they use to transport the pigs to slaughter. Lewis, this is Anna. Do you copy? There's a transport truck pulling into the facility. Over.
Aren't there people that are more qualified or better suited to be doing this?
This is not what I want to be doing with my life. I don't want to be crawling around fields in the middle of the night. I don't want to be facing prison time. I do not want to go to prison. But the reality is, in our current system, a lot of the kind of disease surveillance and testing is left to the industries.
So you're sort of like the vigilantes.
If I don't see anyone else do it, we have no choice. Let's get in this fucking car.
What the fuck, dude? What is this, like vegan Sam Fisher, dude? These guys are just splinter selling like pig factories? What the fuck? Vegan cops, dude. My man is vegan Batman. It's kind of cool.
3, 2, 1, stop. Yep. Very smooth.
The samples the activists with Direct Action Everywhere took didn't turn up harmful viruses this time. In previous raids, they found evidence of coronaviruses, influenza, and antibiotic-resistant bacteria.
I think for a lot of people, COVID-19 was a wake-up call. This is a ticking time bomb. There was a small explosion, and frankly, it was small compared to the risk that we're talking about here.
Winter celery? Rainbow Six vegans.
We've had the solution all along. I mean, there are hog producers across this country who are operating on somewhat of a different model.
For Rob Wallace, that means a return to regenerative agriculture, a style of farming that mimics nature, aims to reverse
Right, these guys aren't Animal Liberation Front, right? Isn't this like the ALF, though? Those are Antifa vegans? No, Animal Liberation Front is fucking wild. Those are the guys who actually take action, not just fucking collect poo-poo samples. The Animal Liberation Front are like the actual fucking Antifa dudes who punch people.
And holds way less probability of starting the next pandemic.
They are right at the age of exploring, and they open this door on their own, and I catch them all over the place.
Steph Zeta and her husband Dan run a small regenerative farm in Hutchinson, Minnesota, where Wallace gets his pork. The Zetas aren't afraid that the next viral pathogen could possibly be coming from inside their farm.
Hey, come on. Be nice.
Those are the militant vegans. I'm
Will
afraid
all
of them.
These pigs go to slaughter ultimately?
Yes.
Ultimately,
All
yes.
of them? Yeah?
Yes.
I'm terrified of the Animal Liberation Front.
No. I got that.
These animals aren't just meat. They're not just a way for us to make an income on the farm. They're part of the regenerative farming model.
So here at your farm, we can hang out with your animals, we can touch your animals, and they're out here. What would you say to someone who says that that in itself is a biosecurity hazard?
There is no way to control all external forces in nature. And I think that's what an industry tries to do. We don't try to eliminate all pathogens or all viruses or all illnesses or all germs. We try to keep them in balance. And that's the difference between our model and their model. It's almost like they've designed and built a system that preferences illnesses and diseases.
Is this type of farming possible to do on a large scale?
Why does everything have to get big? If we have one farmer running 10,000 acres, or we have 100 farmers running 100 acres, there's still the same amount of food being grown. So what we could have if we extrapolated this model over millions and millions of acres and we worked with nature rather than against it, we could be living in a landscape that becomes more beautiful every year, where livestock and wildlife lives in unison, where water gets clearer and clearer every year. We need to care enough as producers and consumers to make that happen through our choices.
Well, COVID-19 has put us on a crossroads here. So we can have one of two futures. One future is we continue on this path of increased industrialization. And in doing so, we are likely to select for a pathogen that emerges and spreads around the world and kills 1 billion people. The other future is one entirely different from what we're on now, and that is basically returning to a kind of hog production that treats the animal as part of what's called a natural economy, meaning economy that's related to the soils and the waterways and the living nature of the animals involved.
I mean, vegans don't think that those guys are fucking good either. Like, I mean, they're better than Inside the Race to Keep Georgia Blue.
So ready.
Okay, cool.
This way! Just walk this way! Okay.
Organizers here in Atlanta are now focused on high school seniors who weren't old enough to vote in the general election, but will be 18 before January 5th.
I would have expected, like maybe any other teenager, maybe my first election would have been for the presidential election. It was a little sad that I'm just a few weeks off of being able to do that, but the Senate election seems just as important as a presidential election at this point.
The 23,000 soon-to-be 18-year-olds are only part of the massive voter registration drive in Georgia. Organizers are pushing to get even more people to the polls ahead of the runoff. And so far, 82,000 people who didn't vote in the general election have requested ballots ahead of January.
It's going to be a fight. I hate to use such violent language, but it legitimately is going to be a sort of knockdown, drag out, turn out every single voter who supports my candidacy kind of election.
White lawmakers in the Jim Crow South invented the runoff election, assuming that Black and brown people wouldn't come out to vote. Now, organizations like the New Georgia Project are trying to make sure that they do.
We've never been in this situation before.
Wait, what?
There are a lot of people, I've seen a lot of hand-wringing about...
I don't know if that's true. Wait, what the fuck? Is that even true? I thought runoffs were unironically a little bit more democratic because at least you need to hit a majority. I didn't know that, like... I didn't know that it was about... I mean, it's not surprising that everything in the South in regards to elections revolves around making sure that Black people can't vote or stopping Black people from voting. But I legitimately thought that runoffs were more democratic. They stole some fries from the Big Boo.
Low voter turnout for runoffs, right? Like, historically, 20% of the people who showed up for the general will show up in the runoff. And so for us, the strategy ultimately is to make sure that young people, people of color, and women turn out in great numbers.
Where are you going to find this other group of people to kind of get the voter turnout where it needs to be in January?
I think that when people think about Georgia and specifically like what it takes to win in Georgia, they think that the state is basically Atlanta and not Atlanta. And the truth is that we have what is known as the rural Black Belt in our state that is, 20 plus counties that are majority people of color. I think also when people hear sort of rural voters, that in their minds it's code for a white conservative voter. Also not the case in Georgia at all.
So far, the Atlanta-based New Georgia Project has registered nearly 500,000 new voters since 2014. Registration efforts in southern Georgia look different than they do in Atlanta. Albany is in the heart of Georgia's Black Belt, named for its rich, dark soil and a centuries-long history of enslaved labor. Today, it's one of the poorest cities in the state with a majority Black population. And it's in northern Dodge.
Dude, shut the fuck up, you stupid fucking centrist. Oh my God.
County, which has nearly 4,000 unregistered voters of color. During this 4-hour registration event, Kim Daniels was the only person to sign up. What made you decide to come down here and register to vote today?
I decided to come down here and register to vote today because I didn't get a chance to be able to. And I believe that that is because I was miseducated on how to. My family everybody has voted but me, but nobody really showed me how to.
So you weren't able to vote in November?
No, I wasn't.
What are some of the things you care about or the people in your family care about that you are hoping can make some changes?
Mostly just equality, just for everybody to be treated the same and seen as respectable individuals no matter where they come from, like their past.
There are a lot of reasons why people here don't prioritize voting. They're trying to eat, work, and pay their bills. And these very issues, organizers are trying to use to convince people to vote in January. What are some of the biggest challenges you guys face in a rural area like Albany that you don't think is really happening in other parts of Georgia?
You're not going to get 100 people registered to vote in a day in a city like Albany. You have to adjust that expectation.
I mean, I think that there has been a culture here for a long time of people in elected positions or in positions of power in this city and county think that people just don't vote, you know, or that they're not going to come out.
What are you hearing from voters when you're knocking on their door and you're like, can you please just vote one more time for the Senate race? What are they saying back to you?
Well, I think the main thing is that we let the people kind of lead our effort. So we care about what the people care about. We saw that high utilities was the main thing. So we were telling people, if you don't vote for anything else, you have to vote for your light bill.
Okay, but we really need your support in this, because if we're going to make a change, it's going to start with us, you and me. And you know, you might be saying it's one vote, you're just one vote, but that one vote made a difference. Thank you. Girl, you know I got you, girl. Anytime. All right. I'm depending on your vote. We need it, because how much are your utility bills like now?
Probably like $300.
$300? You don't think that's a lot?
God damn, that's
Walk
expensive.
around, I'm coming back to you, okay?
Are you a registered voter?
Yes, I am. I'm registered, but I don't really vote. I don't really get into politics like that.
Why do you think that you're not really into politics, or do you think it matters?
Why
is that so fucking high?
I really don't be thinking my vote count at times, but
Why is that so fucking high? Is it because it's a house? Only 300? Man, I live in Los Angeles. What the fuck are you talking about? I pay like $300 in utility. With like my fucking crazy internet and shit. It's actually, I pay less than that. It's rural.
recently after seeing what happened with the election this year and all of that, I see like it counts. It counts. You gotta vote. I'm 26. I have 3 kids, and right now I'm unemployed because I'm a full-time mom with them.
What do you think are some of the main priorities for the people here in Albany?
I would say their bills, their health care, because it's a lot of elderly people down here. And it's a lot of low-income families and stuff like that, too.
Thank you.
Shut up, poor person. You don't understand. It's actually a losing argument to talk about Medicare for all. Let me and the insurance executives that pay me to say these things tell you, a poor person, what's really important. And that is earned income tax credits for those of you who graduated from historical black colleges and universities who will now be engaging in an entrepreneurial endeavor in an area of need. Why are you so privileged? Did no one tell you that Medicare for all is literally racist, Sweaty?
Thank you.
Why do you want Joe Biden to lose?
Okay, I will. I'm going to make sure I vote.
Disgusting.
Love you, you sexy beast.
How do you go from winning the Nobel Peace Prize to being blamed for a humanitarian crisis all in just months?
Ethiopia's Nobel Prize-winning prime minister sidelined Tigray's powerful regional...
3, 2, 1. 1.
Yeah.
Drug scenes are a part of a lot of movies and TV shows. In Breaking Bad, the meth that they smoked was actually blue rock candy.
Right now, I'm crushing up this meth so we can get it into a consistency That is more smokable.
Wow. While all these drugs look real, accuracy is only one part of the job. Any fake drug, whether it's snorted, puffed, or injected, has to be safe for the actor, something that hasn't always been the case on film sets. Striking that perfect balance is where a prop master like Joel Barkow comes in. Joel has made fake drugs for shows like The Sopranos and Blue Bloods, and he says making these drugs act real is always the first hurdle. Let's take a simple example to start. It's not enough for a prop joint to look realistic, it also has to produce the right kind of smoke. Substituting tobacco for cannabis seems like an easy solution, but tobacco smoke isn't as heavy as cannabis smoke, and that means it won't look quite right. So prop masters use a cannabis strain that lacks THC for scenes that involve smoking weed. I cannot say that this looks any different than the cannabis smoke that I have seen in my life. It looks like a real joint. Hits like one too. That's pretty harsh. For other drugs like heroin, prop masters need to have different mixtures of the fake drug ready, depending on if the scene calls for melting it or not. For static shots, Joel has found that the best looking fake heroin comes from a combination of pancake waffle mix and cocoa powder.
It's just all about getting the color. All these things are about color, consistency, etc. It just reads really well on camera.
But for scenes that require the drug to actually be heated up on camera, a completely different fake heroin mixture is swapped in, because the pancake mix doesn't melt very well.
They use brown sugar, a little bit of water to get the bubbly effect.
While brown sugar doesn't look very much like powdered heroin, it mimics melted heroin quite well, matching the sticky look of the bubbles. Creating realistic fake drugs that look good in close-up shots is one thing, but it gets even more complicated when an actor has to take these fake drugs on screen. For scenes that require an actor to shoot up with the needle can't actually penetrate the actor's skin, but they need to show the syringe injecting the fake drugs. So, for these situations, a specially engineered needle is used.
This is a retractable syringe. This is the greatest syringe to use for on camera because what it does is the plunger is ready to just force forward and it'll retract into itself along with the needle. As you push the pump into the syringe, the liquid disappears inside a tube and vice versa too. Let's say in a scene where you need to draw blood from an actor, you can do the same thing. You have red liquid already inside there and pull this out.
Joel also provides real needles to use for shots that don't require faking injections or drawing blood.
When I send them out, you'll have a kit. In this case, this one's dulled. I don't send like a really sharp tip out. And so that way they can do this on camera as they're about to inject. And then if they're gonna actually do the injection, they'd have a retractable one as it's standing.
Hey guys, it's not real needles, okay? Shut the fuck up.
Knowing the look of a substitute is just one part of the job. Joel has the added challenge of making sure any fake drug is also safe for the actor, and Hollywood hasn't always gotten that right. For example, the fake cocaine that was used on the set of Scarface caused minor but permanent damage to Al Pacino's nasal passage. This injury was likely the result of the quantity and quality of the film's fake cocaine, which in this case was powdered baby laxatives. In order to avoid any sort of accidents or injuries like this, Joel works directly with actors to prepare them for using fake drugs.
You have to think of them at all times. If you talk to them about any allergies, it's almost like being a prop doctor.
Joel said that one of the most common allergies...
Any of these PhDs were actually, medical doctors, they wouldn't be so grossed out by these needles and stuff.
That he has to look out for is lactose intolerance, because powdered lactose is often used as fake cocaine.
And so if they are lactose intolerant, obviously you're not going to use the lactose. That gives you the next option, which is inositol.
Inositol is a vitamin B complex that is safe to ingest. It looks so much like cocaine that drug dealers have been known to use it to cut the actual stuff. Joel said that this prop cocaine is so harmless that it shouldn't even irritate an actor's nostrils when they snort it. Joel lent me some inositol so that I could check it out for myself. Sweet. This is wild.
Wait, is he snorting it?
Oh yeah.
Right?
Doesn't really feel like anything.
What the fuck?
No stinging or anything like that. Wow. Yeah, that was easy.
Good.
I'm just shocked at how, it's not that it...
Bro, the way he fucking snorted that so easily is like, this is not his first rodeo. You know what I mean? Is this allowed on Twitch? Dude, are you fucking stupid? It's all props, man. Why would this not? It's literally about props. Like how movies make fake drugs. Is this allowed on Twitch? Like, you're so fucking
pleasant.
stupid.
It was an extremely neutral experience.
Right.
Which is, I guess, what you would want.
And that's what you want. You want them to be able to act on
Right.
camera and not, tearing up and crying.
Yeah, totally.
When any actor's snorting, ingesting fake cocaine, it's good to have a nasal spray nearby
Sure.
too, to offer them up, just afterwards or in between takes if you need to, just clear it all out.
While prop drugs have gotten safer since the days of Scarface, things can still go wrong. While filming 2013's The Wolf of Wall Street, actor Jonah Hill became ill after snorting too much vitamin D powder during production.
I did so much fake cocaine in Wolf of Wall Street, I got bronchitis for 3 weeks. I had to be hospitalized. Yeah.
While vitamin D powder is theoretically completely safe to ingest, inhaling the powder almost every day for several weeks straight caused an infection in his lungs. Just as actors stopped using real cigarettes on screen after the health risks of smoking became widely publicized, actors have recently become more conscious of the fake drugs that they might have to ingest. Some prop masters have created rigs with a suction device that will suck up the fake drugs for the actor. To hide this rig, the tip of the hose is wrapped in a dollar bill. The hose can then be pushed up an actor's shirt and out their sleeve. And then the right camera angle and lighting are used so that only the dollar bill tip is exposed. You can see this ingestion-free technique in a scene with Armie Hammer in 2018's Sorry to Bother You. They chose to use the rig because there was so much fake cocaine that needed to be snorted. For Joel's suction rig, he uses a manual pump so it functions more like a human lung.
You can use a compressor as well with this, but I thought it was going to be, a compressor would be way too much power.
All right, that looks good. Okay, so on 3, 2, 1, go. Okay.
3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
As you can see, the final shot looks pretty good, especially for having such minimal setup time. Joel said that these rigs aren't used very often, but I'd expect.
Bro, this dude fucking literally looks like he already does drugs. You know what I mean?
To see them become more common in the future. It was pretty easy to use, and I didn't have to snort it.
I mean, he cut the line up like fairly well.
Anything myself. It would definitely be a nice option to have if there was a scene where I knew I'd be doing a lot of takes. Figuring out fake drugs for movies isn't as simple as finding one solution. Like in the case of cocaine, it's about figuring out better and better alternatives that look great on screen and keep actors as safe as possible. Each iteration becoming a small part of Hollywood history
I don't feel
and
so
constantly
good,
reaching for a new high.
We didn't do the whole thing.
Okay, hold on, what's that?
I mentioned this.
How do you know how to cut lines well? How do I know?
It is not a coincidence.
How do I know how to cut lines well? I don't know. I just assumed.
That this bird, often consumed at winter holiday feasts, shares its name with the land of the Turks. The turkey is named after.
The irony is, in Turkish, Turkey is Hindi, which is of course similar to India.
After Turkey. At first blush, this makes no sense at all because the turkey, both in its wild and domestic forms, is indigenous to here, the Americas, not to Eurasia. The world beyond the Americas only obtained this bird relatively recently via the Columbian Exchange. But that fact actually explains why the turkey is called the turkey, or the Hindi, or the Indic, or the Peru. There's all just different people trying to identify this delicious new character who had suddenly appeared in their lives, and they were doing it by either comparing it to similar birds they already knew, or by naming it after the places from which or the people from whom they most directly obtained it. And by that standard, I could call this bird the Whoopie, because I got footage of her at Whoopie Farm here in Kathleen, Georgia.
My name's Farmer Mark. Whoopie is a Lakota Sioux word, and it translates into hope.
Speaking of indigenous Americans, what did they call the turkey? I mean, if anybody gets to have an authoritative opinion on the subject, it's them, right?
This bird was domesticated in the central areas of Mexico, mainly Oaxaca, 2,000 years ago.
I asked my delightfully international followers over on TikTok to duet me and to tell me what they call this bird.
So this guy, it's called guajolote in Mexico, and the word comes from the Nahuatl language, huexolotl, which literally means the old monster.
Just looking at it, the name fits, right? Old monster or beast, or sometimes it's translated as great monster, great beast, Guajolote. That's what the Aztecs called it. Or at least, Guajolote is the Spanish colonists' version of the indigenous word that was something more like this. I'm not even gonna try to say it. But the Spaniards did come up with their own name for this bird, and that name is naturally still around in Mexico.
Hi, I'm Christy. I'm from Mexico, and we call this a pavo.
Pavo. That's a Romance word that potentially goes back to ancient Greek.
This video fucking sucks, dude. Okay. Here. A future beyond capitalism, socialism, explained. I gotta fucking pee. I'll be back in 1 second.
Episode was made in collaboration with Azure Scapegoat. They run a fantastic channel covering all sorts of leftist topics, so be sure to check out their video after this.
This is Marxism, and Marxism is based on the belief that no person has any value as an individual.
I believe I was one of the first commentators to point out that it was a very Marxist movement, and the organization is part of a global movement to destroy life as we know it in America and probably in the rest of the Western world.
They're just bad. I believe in free enterprise. They're Marxists. I believe in equal opportunity. They believe in government-guaranteed equal outcome.
We will honor your courage with my administration's determination to defeat communism and socialism, and we will do that in our own country, too. We're in the process of doing it right now. The courageous veterans here today bear witness to how socialism, radical mobs, and violent communists ruin a nation.
If there's one thing America has down to a science, it's twisting the meaning of words and using them to terrify the population. Ever since the Soviet Union rose to prominence to the point of competing with the US for global supremacy, the powers that be have fought hard to burn the image of communism and socialism as great evils into the mind of the average American. In this episode, we're going to correct the record. There's nothing wrong with criticizing ideas you disagree with. But in order to do that, you have to engage with accurate depictions of those ideas. So, let's talk about America's favorite boogeyman, Marxism. But before we do that, we need to briefly discuss the history of capitalism. Once upon a time, there existed an
Like Bernie Sanders? This is him now. Still like Bernie Sanders, dude? Donkey uploaded a big drama video about Minecraft Dream. Do we watch this or should we just move on to like fun stuff and leave this for tomorrow? I'm kind of bored of like... Damn, everyone is saying, wait, fun and watch it. All of the above? Okay, we'll watch this.
We need to briefly discuss the history of capitalism. Once upon a time, there existed an economic system that was neither capitalism nor communism. Shocking, right? Under this arrangement, lords granted parcels of land to the lower echelons of society, and the recipients, known as vassals, in exchange would work the land and vow to fight for their lord should he call upon them. This was a pretty sweet deal for the nobility, because they got laborers to work their land, grow them food, and fight in their wars. The vassals had little choice other than to enter into these agreements in order to stave off starvation and abject poverty. This type of arrangement later became known as feudalism, and from a modern perspective, it seems outdated and cruel. Fast forward several centuries, and we begin to see a fledgling new economic...
in Huntington Beach, Chad City.
Yeah, this is very different than what we have now, by the way. Like the vassal states of tech feudalism.
System take its first...
Like Silicon Valley, where they have like, you know, corporate dorms, things like that.
Steps. Somewhere between the 14th and 15th centuries, feudalism lost ground to a market-based system, one that elevated some of the lower tiers of society, creating a new merchant class. Not quite peasant, but certainly not nobility. Since that time, various interpretations of market-based economies have been implemented with varying degrees of success around the world. When proponents of capitalism say that it raised the standard of living for millions of people, they're correct. Capitalism has its place in history, and has unquestionably increased global production many times over since the days of feudalism. But just like technology keeps advancing, so too does history need to keep moving. And just like feudalism was overtaken when it became outdated, so too will capitalism need to be replaced with a superior system. We have a tendency to believe that history is only something that happened in the past, that we've now reached the end of history. This perspective makes it difficult to see that life and progress are ongoing processes, and that there will come a time when capitalism will seem just as outdated as feudalism. I believe we're at a point where large portions of the world population are beginning to realize that global capitalism is actively making their lives worse. The system having generated such vast oceans of capital in the hands of the powerful that it's left the majority to suffer needlessly, even in tremendously wealthy countries. This inflection point, the shift in public perception to viewing capitalism less than favorably, signals the beginning of a massive societal change. Capitalism